What's up YouTube, I'm Arlos Andy, and I just wanted to put out a quick guide on getting started in Melty Blood Tide Lumina, because this game is mad fun and it makes me really happy. With it being a new game and there being a lot of new players, I wanted to share some tips to help the learning process go a bit easier for beginners. These tips are general fighting game tips and ideas that I wish I had when I first started playing fighting games, because I feel like a lot of fighting game tutorials at the time were too complicated for me. So I'm going to show you a basic game plan that fits every character, and this basic game plan will then work as a foundation to build off of with your specific character. I'm also going to teach you at least one use for every major mechanic in this game, because it's fun to feel like you have a relatively complete toolkit when you're out there playing matches, you know? So, anyways, let's jump right into things. Alright, first things first, you should do a bit of the game's actual tutorial if you can. Now, I know tutorials can be kind of boring, and the last thing you want to do in a fighting game is homework, but don't worry, we're not going to do all of it, just the bare minimum. Think of this like the Spark Notes of Melty tutorials. I would say to go up to about tutorial 316 because this is all the information you absolutely need, in my opinion. This will teach you basic movement, specials, some mechanics, and basically give you a good framework that will coincide very well with this video. Anything past that point of the tutorial, in my opinion, is excess material that's only really useful once you've improved a bit. It's good stuff, and will help you improve for sure, but for now we don't need it, so we're not going to worry about it. But let's say you can't do the tutorial because you don't have the game yet, or you really just don't want to do the tutorial because you know you'll get too bored by it. That's cool. I think playing the tutorial helps you to get a feel for the game, but if you don't want to do it or don't have the game available to play yet, here's what you can do. There's a YouTube video by a guy called BrendanMushi of him doing the tutorial that will tell you just about everything you need to know. I've followed BrendanMushi for a long time, and he's one of my favorite FGC YouTubers because he's very smart, very good at explaining things, and he's also a super chill and funny guy. Watch up to the 11-minute point of his video and you'll be good to go. I'll link that video in the description, so if you can't do the tutorial, watch that instead. Now let's start with movement. Obviously you can walk, dash, and jump. But Melty also has a lot of things that let movement be really freeform. You have double jumps, and you can use air dashes by hitting either forward or back, or using the dash macro of pressing back or forward and A+B. These movement options give you tons of ways of getting around the screen to attack your opponent, set up mix-ups, or to evade defensively and get into a better situation. While it's good to practice moving around in training mode a little bit, I found the best way for me to learn movement when I was starting out was in matches. What I would do is I'd say to myself, okay, for the next 5 seconds, I'll stay this close to my opponent, but I'm not going to let them hit me. Now, keep your Ultra Instinct dodging time limit relatively short. We don't want to be using our 6th movement to be toxic or anything like that. But honestly, practicing movement like this helped me a lot. I feel it helps you to figure out how to bob and weave around what your opponent is doing during a match, rather than just randomly air dashing all over the place just because you can. I'll also briefly talk about neutral here, which is the state where neither player is on offense or defense. In neutral, you're both maneuvering a lot, trying to bait out certain responses, control space, or get into the position where your character is strongest. Neutral's kind of difficult to explain, as it's heavily based on the mind games of fighting games. For now, practice movement and try to stay in ranges where your character's moves are stronger than your opponent's. If your character's goal is to zone or play mid-range, try to stay in spots where your moves will outrange your opponent's moves. If your character's goal is to rush down the opponent or grapple, use your movement to get in and then use fast buttons, pressure, and character-specific options once you're close. Now you've probably noticed that this game has quite a few meters, bars, and resources that you can use, so let's take a look at those. Moon Gauge is in the top corners and lets you use your moon skills, which are performed by simply pressing a direction in BC. Moon skills cost certain amounts of the Moon Gauge, so they usually are pretty useful. Get an idea of your particular character's moon skill properties and use them accordingly. Moon Gauge also lets you activate Moon Drive, which has strong offensive and defensive uses we'll discuss later. Moon Drive also gives you some sick movement changes, so keep that in mind. Shield is a mechanic that you can use on defense. It has some different follow-ups that we'll talk about later in the video. For now, just know that standing shield will beat out high strikes, while crouching shield beats out low strikes. Both standing and crouching shield will beat out mid attacks. If a shield whiffs, you lose a few points from the Moon Gauge, so be careful about when you use them. Shield creates a ton of crazy mind games, so as a beginner, just go kinda crazy and have some fun with the DBZ style clashes. The magic circuit bar in the bottom corners gives you access to EX moves, arc drives, and heat activation. EX moves, like moon skills, usually have special properties that make them very useful and strong, but cost 1 bar of the magic circuit meter. Arc drives are your supers and cost 3 bars. They do great damage and usually leave you in a good position, so they're often good to end combos with. Heat activation does a couple of things, but the main thing for now is that it acts kinda like a get off me option, sort of like a Guilty Gear burst if you've played that game. It also puts you into a state where your meter slowly drains, and this makes 2 important things happen. First, while your meter is draining, you regain recoverable life on your health bar, which is super nice. Second, you can spend meter kinda crazy, and honestly it's a pretty good idea to spend it in my opinion. While your meter is draining from heat, it's kind of a use it or lose it time because of the meter drain. You can also use powered up versions of your super called Last Arc. You can do this in 2 ways. The first is to press A, B, C, D all together with 4 bars. Second, if you activate heat with 4 full bars, you go into blood heat. If you get a successful shield during blood heat, you automatically do a Last Arc. The most important thing that I can say here is use your resources. Just throw stuff out, go wild, and learn from there. You'll learn when to spend meter and when to save it for later and what moves or mechanics are good to spend meter on. But if you just hoard your meter because you're afraid you'll waste it, you'll never learn how to use it. That, and you'll also be putting yourself at a disadvantage by not using strong moves. Go crazy and spend your meter. Just throw stuff out, see what works and what doesn't, and then keep doing what works. Now I guess we'll get the boring stuff out of the way first, and that's defense, because no one buys a fighting game to hold back on their controller in all honesty. However, I will say that I feel like solid defense is one of the things that truly separates the beginner players from the decent ones. So just know that defense is super important for your game. Now obviously you'll need to learn how to block high and low, as well as when to switch your blocking direction for cross-ups and all that. However, this game has a lot of unique defensive options and things that you can do to turn the tide, so let's go over some defensive strats and options real quick. First, we have good old defensive mashing, or as the people who are in denial about being mashers call it, a bar A. If you don't think your opponent is going to be clean their pressure or is going to leave a gap, you might be able to mash 2A to interrupt them. This is still risky though, because if their pressure is on point, you're going to get blown up and look a little silly for mashing on every wake up. Certain characters also have invincible or invulnerable moves that can be used to get out of defensive situations. DPs like Shikis or Ciels are great for this kind of thing. These kinds of moves are called reversals and can blow through a lot of pressure options due to their invincibility. Certain EX moves, moon skills, or supers can often be used as reversals too, so if you have the resources you might want to try using those moves on defense. Another option you have is to use shields. Now shield wars can create some crazy mind games, but for now let's just talk about each follow-up that you can use. First, you have the launch follow-up by pressing A or C. This is a pretty basic counterattack from a successful shield, but it can be counter-shielded pretty easily. The next option is the teleport follow-up by pressing B, which is great for trying to mix up your opponent's block or their shield timing, as it takes some time to come out compared to the launch follow-up. The final option is the BC follow-up, and this is one that I'd recommend using if you have some moon meter available and just want to try and get out of a shield situation fast because of its invincibility. This one does cost a good chunk of your moon meter though, so be careful to keep an eye on your resources. The last main defensive options I wanted to touch on are the activation of unique states. Heat activation, as I mentioned previously, is a great get off me option that works similar to a burst in Guilty Gear or other anime games. It does cost you your magic circuit meter, but if you have the meter available and really want to get out of a mix-up situation or the corner, heat is a great way to do that. Plus you'll get some recoverable health back. Moondrive activation is also looking to be a very strong defensive option, as it briefly freezes the screen so you can see what's going on. For example, if you're knocked down and want to see what your opponent is trying to do to mix you up, activate Moondrive and you can get an idea of what's happening. You might see that they're jumping at you with an aerial attack, so you can react by stand blocking it, or even better, you might be able to shield the attack, or punish with a counter attack of your own. Remember, defense is a bit tricky, and in a fast game like this one, you might feel a bit panicked at times. That's okay, we all know the feeling, but hopefully these tips can help you out if you're in a pinch. Alright, now let's get to the fun stuff, which is slapping some goddamn buttons. The first thing I'll mention here is that confirming into combos isn't like other fighting games, like Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat, for example. In those games, you're often confirming off of single hits or attacks, but Melty's a bit different. In Melty, I've found it best to think of it as doing different strings or groups of moves in order to confirm into combos or pressure, and this will make more sense once I show you a bit of what I mean. I'll show you some basic strings and mix-ups to keep your opponent guessing on defense, how to use throws, and what you should do if your opponent tries to escape in the air. For this guide, we're going to look at Saber, one because I think she looks cool, and I think a lot of new players will also gravitate towards her if they're familiar with Fate, or if they just think she stands out from the rest of the cast, or if they just think she looks cool like I do. So, let's talk about your offensive game plan. Now, offense in fighting games works like ogres and onions. There's layers. Wait, please don't close the video, let me explain. Your job on offense is to vary your pressure in ways that will break the opponent's defense, and having even a handful of offensive options, or layers, will help you a ton. Being able to rotate between low strings, overheads, cross-ups, and other options will make you an offensive monster, so let's take a look at some of those real quick. So first, we'll start with a basic string, A, B, C. This string can be done either standing or crouching, but crouching will generally be stronger as it has ways to open your opponent low. Either way, mix between standing and crouching for this simple string. But if you just throw out A, B, C, you're gonna get punished pretty easily, so we need to find a way to make it so we can recover in time to block. Luckily, Melty has a unique mechanic called reverse beat that can do just this. In most games, you can connect moves from light to heavy, like we're doing now. But in Melty, you can also go back from a heavy into a light move if you haven't already used it in a string. So if we do standing A, B, C, and the opponent blocks it all, you can simply chain into a crouching A. If you start with crouching A on the string, chain back into a standing A. These A moves recover much quicker than a C move, and will generally give you enough time to block your opponent's counterattack. Moondrive activation cancels all recovery if it's used after a move, so it's also a great way to stay safe if you use an unsafe move. Now keep in mind that these aren't foolproof, but they're a strong starting point. Okay, so we've got a decent starting string with some lows, but that just means our opponent can crouch block forever and wait for a chance to shield, reversal, or challenge. What are we gonna do? Well, we need to introduce some other mix-up options to keep our opponent guessing. The first one we'll talk about is overheads. Air moves are all overheads, so they're a great way to open people up high. Now Saber also has a grounded overhead move in her back B plus C, and we can use this move with our ABC strings from before. Now our opponent has to worry about blocking out our first low string, and look out for the overhead that's going to knock their noggin. Now if the opponent blocks the overhead, you'll recover in time to block them if they counterattack. But if you throw out a move, they'll hit you first. It's not your turn to pressure anymore since they blocked the moon skill, so be careful not to push a button afterward, because a decent player will punish you for that. I'll also mention that you don't have to do the string before you do an overhead. You can just go right into the overhead, or do it at different points in the string so that your opponent can't get used to when you'll do the overhead. Changing up the timings of your high and low options can be just as effective as rotating between them, so keep your opponent guessing on both which you'll do and when. Now Melty has some cool movement options for opening up your opponent, and I want you to experience a bit of that. So I'm going to tell you about a really cool setup that you can do in Melty to do a cross-up. It's a little trickier than the previous string, but give it a little practice and I know you'll get it. So, if you have a mid-screen knockdown, what you'll want to do is jump straight up and then hold towards your opponent. When you jump straight up in Melty, you can drift forward or backward. The first option is to drift and fall to the ground and press crouching A. This forces your opponent to react and switch their blocking direction to the other side. Once you have them worried about you jumping to the other side, we get a little tricky. Your next option is to jump, drift forward, and then air dash backwards after you've drifted over them, and then press jump B. This is a great fake out, because your opponent might expect you to just drift over and do the first option, but now you're back on the other side and hitting them overhead instead of low. These are some basic mix options for lows, overheads, and cross-ups, and if you rotate these options, you'll keep your opponent guessing on defense. Now that's all fine and good, but what if you run into an opponent who's just a blocking god and is reacting to every option you do? They're just blocking there, menacingly. So what do we do to beat their blocking? The answer is to throw their bitch ass. Throws beat blocking and are pretty fast in this game. If your opponent is too scared to challenge and is committed to blocking, you need to make them second guess that choice by using throws to beat their block. By mixing in throws every now and then, your opponent now has to worry about all your highs, lows, and cross-ups, and the threat of you throwing them if they're blocking too much. If you do this right, their thought process will be something like this. Oh crap, I'm knocked down. What string are they gonna do? I'll just block low and try to react to an overhead. But what if they cross up? Should I challenge with a button here? Should I use my DP to get out? And they threw me and I didn't tech it, motherfucker! So yeah, once your opponent's afraid of the throw, you also might have an easier time landing a slow overhead, cross up, or even just run up to start another pressure string. That's because your opponent's brain is overloaded by all your other options that they have to defend against. Having even a few strats to rotate like this will help keep your offense varied and unpredictable. Finally, let's talk about the air game when you're on offense. Your opponent might try to jump and air block to get out of your pressure. If you see them doing this a lot, one answer, and my personal favorite, is to call them out by chasing them with a jump and then air throw their bitch ass. If they jump and stick out an air attack to keep you from throwing, you have some options. One option is to try to beat out their attack with a faster air button, or punish them after their move misses. Using far-reaching air attacks is also a solid idea if you have a long-range jump attack, as this will help you to control the airspace during your matches. This is a super simple air game plan, but get a feel for how air movement feels and how you'll need to control space with air attacks. Overall, the most important thing I can say about offense is this. If something you're doing is working, you keep doing that thing until your opponent figures out how to stop it, or your opponent is dead. Alright, now let's talk about combos. They're one of the super cool and flashy things you notice the most as a new player, but there's a reason I'm talking about them last in this guide. As someone who's gone through the learning process of being a beginner, I'll just say this. Super optimal and long combos like you see in character trailers and tournaments aren't important, and you don't need them as a beginner. Let me say that again. Crazy combos are not necessary for you to learn and do well in fighting games. In fact, I'd argue that focusing on learning super hard combos is one of the worst things you can do as a new player. Now with that said, combos are still useful. When I'm looking for a combo though, it has to fit two criteria for me to use it in a match. First, I need to be able to do it consistently. This is important because if you can't do the combo consistently, you're definitely not going to be able to do it in a match. The next thing I look for is if the combo leaves me in a good position. Some questions I ask myself include, does this combo push my opponent to the corner? Or does this combo give me a knockdown so that I can run pressure? Does this combo lead into a setup that I know? There's obviously more to combos than that, but those two things are really all that you need to focus on right now. Looking at these two criteria will help you to know what combos you should be doing. Doing the simple strings I showed you into an EX move will often give you a knockdown or push your opponent into the corner. While your combo is simple, you're setting yourself up to have an easier time getting your next hit by having access to the pressure and mix-ups we talked about. Think death by 1,000 cuts. Another thing I'll mention is that it is far from a bad thing to use auto combos as a beginner. Using rapid beat does have some drawbacks, especially on pressure. Rapid beats can't be reverse beated, so if you throw them out on block, you're gonna get punished. So be careful to not just mash rapid beat on offense. But if you can confirm from the strings you learned and then go into the auto combo, you're getting some decent damage and you'll be able to do it consistently, as well as set yourself up for pressure and other options. And I'll let you in on a little secret, almost all the combos I did throughout this video were auto combos. They look cool, they're great for beginners, and they put you in a pretty solid position. Don't let anyone make you feel bad for using tools that are in the game. Now as you play and learn, you might want to learn an actual combo, and Melty Blood has a great solution to this, and that is the BC air throw combo. Now if you know anything about Melty, you know BC air throw is a bit of a meme because literally everyone can do this combo, but in my opinion it's great for beginners to have this combo. One, it usually does better damage compared to rapid beats, it gives you a good knockdown so you can run pressure, and it works almost universally so you can try all the characters without having to grind 14 unique combos. So real quick, let's break down Saber's BC air throw combo. So you start with the string into down forward C. The game will automatically make you jump towards your opponent once the down forward C hits. Once you're in the air, you're going to hit B and then C, then you'll forward jump or jump cancel, and hit BC one more time. And after the C hits, you'll end the combo with an air throw. Jump cancels can be a little weird in combos at first. I struggled with them a lot when I started out in Dragon Ball FighterZ. Hang in there, it'll click and before you know it, you'll be doing some sick bombos. Now with that said, remember, only do combos that you can do consistently and leave you in a good position compared to your opponent. If you can't do BC air throw yet, that's perfectly fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with using auto combos or just doing shorter combos, like going straight into an EX move after a string, or doing just one BC rep into an air throw. You'll be able to do these simpler combos consistently and always put yourself in a good position. I promise that this will make learning the game a better experience than grinding for hours on a really hard combo that you'll drop 9 times out of 10 and then get punished for. If you're having a hard time coming up with some ideas for combos, check out the mission mode. It has some trials with some genuinely good and simple combos you can start with. For now, make BC air throw your goal, and you'll be doing just fine against your opponents. And that's it! That's everything you need to start out in Melty Blood type Lumina. This is a simple game plan that should help you get started, and as you get more comfortable with the game, feel free to look for more information to fill out the holes, like with the in-game tutorial, BrendanMushi's video that I have linked, or just other tutorials and guides that you might find for characters or for more advanced stuff in the game. But really quick, let's just review the game plan that I showed you in this video. 1. Use movement and your attack ranges in neutral to hopefully get into a pressure situation. 2. Use the ABC strings to pressure, and go into a combo if you get a hit. 3. If they block the string, do a reverse beat or moondrive activation to stay safe. 4. If you can't open them up with those strings, try to use air attacks or overhead moves your character might have to open them up high. 5. If you're mid-screen and have a knockdown, give that cross-up setup I showed you a try. 6. If they're just blocking a ton, run up and throw their bitch ass. 7. As you do these options, try to keep them from escaping to the air with air attacks and air throws. On defense, try to stay calm and look for patterns that your opponent has. Challenge with fast buttons or reversals if you feel good about it. Try different defensive options too, like shields, heat activation, and moondrive, and see what works for you. Now if you're a new player, this might still feel like a lot even though I'm calling it simple. And it's 100% okay to feel that way. Everyone starts out as a beginner, and we often don't see the steps that made the great players so great. You're not going to remember everything in this guide, you're not going to land every combo, and yeah, you're going to take some L's along the way. On the other hand though, I think you'll be surprised at how quickly you might learn and pick up things. Celebrate the small victories, like finally opening up the opponent that has been blocking against you forever, using your defensive options in new and smart ways, or landing that combo you practiced for the first time, and I'm sure you'll get some dubs on the way too. And even if you don't win much at the start, you'll get there. I promise you will. I played someone in Guilty Gear Plus R a while back that was 0-56 before they got their first win against me, and this was my reaction.
Let's freaking go! First one, heck yeah, you're a freaking monster. You're a freaking god for trucking on this long. Heck yeah, bro. Heck yeah, little Vi, you're a freaking beast. Let's go. Freaking love it. Man, let's keep getting this work, man. Let's keep getting this work.
So yeah, even if you start out taking some body blows in there, just know that we're all getting hyped for you whenever that first win comes along. If you learned from this video, I'd really appreciate it if you dropped a like and subscribe so that I can grow the channel a bit more. I also have a Twitter at ArloSandy, so if you want to, then feel free to follow me there. Now, get out there and play some Type Lumina. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you're still watching at this point, you're really cool and probably have, like, great fashion sense, too. I don't know, I'm just saying stuff at this point, you know? But yeah, I'm new to this whole YouTube thing, so there's definitely some rough edges on this guide, but I just wanted to share some game plan tips I had that I wish I'd known sooner. So yeah, if this helped you, feel free to share this with other beginners or anyone that you think might be interested in trying Melty out. I just really want this game to do well because I think it's really fun. Plus, this guide was fun for me to make too, so I want to keep doing videos. I'm planning on doing some just gameplay videos for various games, as well as more tutorial breakdowns for some characters in Type Lumina. So if you want to see those, feel free to subscribe. I'd love to see familiar faces coming back for more videos. I'm also working on some music analysis stuff as well, so if you're interested in that kind of thing, then stick around. Anyways, thanks for tuning in, y'all, and until next time, peace out.